Hi, welcome back to the channel. Oh boy. This is a video that I have been trying to make for a while now. Like months, but every single time either something new comes out that needs to be addressed, or I feel like I don't articulate myself well enough. Um, I just it's hard for me to really sit down and really talk about my full thoughts on Halo Infinite because they're always changing and oftentimes it is not for the better. So instead of a script today, I just got some points that I want to discuss. And it's not a script, this is just my full unfiltered thoughts. And yeah, with that said, I'll just get right into it, starting with what's most relevant to me, which is the campaign and things like that. I loved Halo Infinite's campaign. I and I know there are a lot of people that will be like, "Oh, Halo 3, Halo 2." Yes, I know. And I love Halo 3, and I love Halo 2. I love Halo 4. I love Halo CE. I love Halo Reach. I love ODST. I love Halo Wars. I love Halo Wars 2. And I'm not a fan of Halo 5, but I still see why people like it. So, or at least why some people like it. The point is, I love Halo. And I genuinely loved Halo Infinite's campaign. It was, for me personally, my favorite Master Chief game. With that said, I still noticed that, sometimes there was a lack of polish. I noticed that things looked like it had been cut. I noticed that the campaign was not full. And that is a flaw that I noticed. Like, as an example, Halo 2 and Halo 3, there was so much to them that was cut. I mean, Halo 2, look at it. Just look at it. And we tend to look back on Halo 2 with rose-tinted lenses, but, I mean, like, Halo 2, it is insane what was marketed, how the game was marketed, and how much of it got cut, and the fact that Halo 2 still, like, blew up the way it did, and the fact that Halo 3 went on to be a success. Like, if Halo Infinite did what Halo 2 did, oh man. Like, the smoke and mirrors thing. But at the same time, playing through Halo 2, you don't know that things have been cut. You don't see that it is lacking. But Halo Infinite, at times, you could tell that there was more that was supposed to be that just wasn't there. And then the fact is, we haven't gotten any updates on future campaign DLC, future campaigns, spin-offs, any form of PvE content for that matter. No firefight, nothing. And I mean, like, firefight. I'm not a game developer, so I don't know. I don't know. But from an outside perspective, it would not be that hard to take the House of Reckoning wave thing. Like, if you played Halo Infinite's campaign, the House of Reckoning had a system that was pretty much just like firefight. I mean, 3 different areas that are pretty much perfect for firefight, with all these enemies coming at you in waves. You could there could be skulls, and there's all these weapons around the map. It would be perfect for some form of firefight. And it wouldn't be that hard. At least I don't think it would be, unless there's just some fundamental reason that it just can't be easily turned into a firefight mode. I mean, it makes no sense to me. And campaigns and PvE content is an important part of Halo. I mean, it is almost a year. It's almost been a year since Halo Infinite released, we have gotten no tidbits on what's next for Halo. We've gotten no lore drops. In the lore drops we've gotten have done very little. All right, like listen, I love Rubicon Protocol. Such a dark, grisly, but wonderfully written book that really details some of the most horrific aspects of Halo. At the same time, at the same time, we need more than just the occasional book. I mean, when Halo 5 when Halo 5 released and Halo 4 released, there was a lot of extended media that went along. It seemed like there was always a piece of media that could go along. Even if that media wasn't always something that people liked, like as an example, Halo Escalation, it still had things that... It still had new stuff. There was new comics. There were books, there were lore drops, there were terminals, there was even audio dramas. And right now, what do we have? What do we have? We have a campaign that turns a year old, that doesn't do much to expand on the world of Halo. As much as I love it, it is really just a modern day Combat Evolved. It doesn't do anything to expand on the world of Halo. It doesn't give us any much lore on the Endless. I mean, the encyclopedia dropped, and it is the biggest, most definitive source for Halo lore right now. And it does so very little to expand on everything. It gives us an interesting and well-written conversation between two Forerunner constructs, or at least presumably two Forerunner constructs, and it makes mention of Halo Infinite. But 343, guys, what happened? You know that you need to do more. And I'm not trying to rag on like 343 and be angry and say fire 343. That is not the goal of this video. That is not the goal of this video. The goal of this video is to basically just emphasize the serious, fundamental mishandling of Halo. And I'm not saying that 343 doesn't care. I know they care. I know 343 cares. I know the people at 343 care. Now, at the same time, it is also clear to me that there is some sort of disconnect between 343 and perhaps management or executives or Microsoft or something. At least that is kind of how it appears to me. It seems like 343 is almost restrained in a way by things like by Microsoft. And here's the truth, and I'm going to be blunt here. The people who want 343 to be dismantled in favor of a new studio taking on control of Halo do not understand a word of what they're saying. 343 is an arm of Xbox, which is an arm of Microsoft, specifically dedicated to the creation of Halo. What they're basically saying is, fire everyone, fire all 400 plus employees at 343 Industries. Just all of them without a job. It doesn't matter if they were good at it or not. It doesn't matter who they are. All the artists, all the writers, all the developers, fired, gone, bam. And then they went to keep Joseph Staten, who is, mind you, now a part of 343, and then create a new studio dedicated to Halo, where they will then re-staff it and create basically the exact same studio, but under a different name. That is not the way to go, and that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. With that said, 343 shouldn't be the only ones working on Halo. There should be other studios working on Halo. I mean, Halo Wars. Arguably something that is very beloved by the Halo community wasn't worked on by Bungie. In fact, people like to talk about Halo Wars as like the last true Halo experience. And then they talk about it like Bungie. No, Bungie didn't make it. First of all, Bungie shunned it. Bungie didn't want to make it, and another developer did. Another studio did, and the story of the development of Halo Wars is actually frankly a tragedy. But we still love Halo Wars, so automatically we know that one studio doesn't have to work on Halo for Halo to succeed, right? We could have multiple studios working on Halo. I mean, it's a franchise. It is a franchise, and we have only had 2 games release in the last 7 years. Think about that. After Halo 5, we have had 2 games release. One of them was Halo Wars 2, the other was Halo Infinite. 2 games. Halo Wars was small. It's a sideshow because it's a spin-off. That's what it's meant to be. Halo Infinite, which should have had all the tools it needed to succeed, released in a frankly unacceptable state. Now, I'm not going to rag on 343 for how Halo Infinite released. It is what it is. Right now, we need to focus on what went wrong, how it happened, and how we can progress in the future, but sticking to campaign and narrative stuff. Infinite's narrative events are extremely lacking. Season 1 had no story. The closest thing we had to a narrative was the Academy tutorial, which had the "What is a Spartan" cutscene. Very good cutscene, but it had nothing to it. And then Season 2, Lone Wolves, was kind of like it was like, oh, the Academy's meant to be this place of safety. What happens if we bring something that it is not so safe into the Academy? And the story for Lone Wolves essentially amounted to a cutscene where they bring in a Spartan who has this weird glowing chip in the back of his head. And it's like, no, don't pull out the chip. And so then they bring him inside, and the cutscene after that basically amounts to, go play multiplayer! Play multiplayer! Go on! Last Spartan standing. It's new, it's fresh, got a new battle pass. Why don't you go play the multiplayer? It is so fun. And that's it. That's the story. That is the entire story of Lone Wolves. Go play multiplayer. That is not acceptable. When you have a live service like Destiny 2 consistently delivering new, fresh story narrative content every single week for the first couple months in a season, you need to step up. It's unacceptable. You need to step up. And I love you guys, 343. Alright? I see you. I see the passion in your team. I have been advocating for you for years. I have consistently gone out to bat to defend you from people that say fire 343. Every single time there is a mishap or something happens, I say, they learned. They've learned. Give it time. And yet it seems as if you repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again. How can I defend that? How can anyone in their right mind defend that? It boggles the mind. I can't defend that 343. And it hurts because I know what you can do. I know what you're capable of. You are capable of pulling off miracles. And you don't put your weight into it. You have everything you need to succeed. You scrapped couch co-op. Forge is absent almost a year in. Co-op is absent almost a year in. We've had 2 new maps. 2 new maps since the launch of Halo Infinite. 2 maps. We are almost a year into the game. 2 maps. The game launched with about the same as Halo 3 while simultaneously having less content than Halo 3. How can I can't justify that. That's there's no sane way I can justify that. And I mean, the lore of Halo, so much potential. So much potential. And it's almost like it's secondary to this live service. It should be up there as part of the live service. It's like it's being treated like a separate part, like a separate thing from the live service. Like it's a thing beneath the live service. The narrative is just as important to Halo as the multiplayer. Okay? And that's where we get into what is arguably one of 343's biggest mistakes here. The Halo lore community has been neglected to a point that Halo lore YouTubers are out of content. And I'm not the only one saying this. Lore YouTubers, Installation 00, Hidden X Spirit, they have said this. I am a lore channel that has only just gotten into Halo, covering Halo lore. Like I've covered Halo for a long time now, and I've been very well versed in Halo lore for a long time now. But I am much newer on the block when it comes to covering lore than the others. I have nothing to cover because it's all been covered. I have had to stop covering Halo lore to cover Warhammer, which I love. I'm going to Destiny, to Warhammer, to SCP. I'm playing everything but Halo. My channel is hardly a Halo-centric channel anymore. And it's at the point where I'm done focusing on Halo, and Halo is only a sideshow for me now, content-wise. The lore community kept interest in Halo for years. Through the content drought, it kept interest in Halo growing and growing and growing. And then it held up such a huge chunk of Halo's community until MCC was finally brought over to PC and like really big things started to actually happen with MCC. And it's just being neglected. We need more than just a book. I'm not just saying this as a content creator that's frankly desperate for content. I'm saying this as someone that knows the importance of the lore community. 343, you guys know the importance of the lore community. I mean, for God's sake, you are in dialogue with major lore YouTubers. You know this. And that's not even getting into issues with the multiplayer, the lack of updates. The sandbox is solid, but at the same time, it's like it's being tweaked and it's being bent to the will of competitive players, and then we get to this really big disconnect between 343 and the community. Here's the thing that, firstly, I'm going to say this right off the bat. Anyone that says that esports isn't important to Halo clearly doesn't understand a major part of Halo, because actually, no, esports has been a major part of Halo since Combat Evolved. In fact, it helped make Halo Halo. But in that same breath, 343 needs to understand that it's not everything. And the problem is that we have players, competitive players that represent a small minority of the community, basically dictating elements of the sandbox. Like the Mangler nerf was entirely unnecessary, and it was a very popular weapon in the Halo community. The Halo community liked it. The calls for a nerf came from a select few individuals. Now, it's not uncommon for esports to curate and make alterations to their tournaments to ensure that competitions are, specifically esports centric. So that's not uncommon. At the same time, it is ludicrous and, frankly, selfish and narcissistic that such a big base is expecting the entire game to conform to what they want. Such a small base is expecting the entire game to conform to their wants over the entire community, and the fact that 343 listens to them over the community is ridiculous. And then 343 is also disconnected from the community in other ways. Like, as an example, the tank gun, the skill jumps removal, the mountain sliding in Infinite's campaign for speedruns. It demonstrates that 343 doesn't read the room. And that's the problem. There's this cycle that where 343 fucks up, and then the Halo community shouts about it, and then 343 says, we'll communicate, and then they communicate, and then they communicate. They talk to us. Like, the Inside Infinite stuff, the constant updates that they gave us on what would be an Infinite at launch, and the status of Halo Infinite's campaign was easily the most talkative I have ever seen a video game developer get in the entire industry. And then Infinite launches, and then gone, silent. And now we're relegated to, like, the occasional update. 343 isn't talking. Nobody's talking to us. And the streams we get basically amount to, hey, here's the new announcement. Sorry to disappoint, but just keep waiting. Also, here's some Halo merch. That's it. That's all the streams amount to. And then and then the drop pods, they didn't communicate well with the drop pods. They made it out to be like the drop pods would be like, oh, yep, we're gonna have like a constant rollout of content, and the drop pods will be there. And thus far, the drop pods have not been plentiful and not exactly given us a lot of content. The lack of game modes, I don't need to cover that. And then there's the whole Forge thing. Like, Forge looks amazing, but the fact that 343 is not talking to us about it, and the fact that all of our information about Forge basically came from people who got it early when they weren't supposed to. I mean, 343, how they handled the response to it is good. Like, they haven't been like, oh, don't you dare, you stop. They've kind of taken it in stride, and they're like, hey, nice builds. But, they should be the ones talking to us. I mean, Installation 00 put it well. And then the Academy. The Academy has kind of been a wasted concept. Like, it's such a good concept that's been wasted for the most part. There's like, they like that just comes back to Firefight. Like, why can't we have like Firefight be like this simulated academy thing. We could say it's training or something. Like, that would be a cool explanation for it. And then there's also the issues with the game itself, like the serious load times, the lack of polish, the long time it takes to address things, and the fact that things are still not in the best place a year later, and the fact that other games have been shafted for this is, like Halo Wars 2. Why? What? Who in their right mind would stop supporting that game? Who? Who would stop supporting Halo Wars 2? That's like, at the moment, Halo's most popular spin-off. Because it's also like the only spin-off, but it had a dedicated, passionate audience, and it could have flourished. It could have flourished. And it's pretty clear that there was more that they wanted to do with it. But it got... They stopped it and allocated the resources and manpower to Halo Infinite. And same with Halo 5. Now, here's what I'll say. Halo 5, developmentally speaking, it's complete. But at the same time, it has its own base. And that base has been shafted because the goal is to go devote resources and manpower to Halo Infinite. MCC has a skeleton crew, and somehow this skeleton crew is consistently nailing it time after time after time after time, more so than the entire rest of the studio that's dedicated to Halo Infinite. I mean, what's even happening anymore? What is happening? What is happening? Talk to us, for God's sake. It is so hard for me to go out there and say that 343 is full of talented and passionate developers, which I know it is, when you're not even talking to us. You're not even showing us anything. Oh my God, for God's sake, talk to us. That's... Guys. You guys are better than this. You can do better. I know you can. Look, whatever you gotta do, do it. At the same time, you gotta tell us. You gotta talk to us. Alright? You need to sit down. Tell us what happened. What went wrong. What is continuing to go wrong. How you are addressing it. How you are trying to fix it. And how you intend to ensure that once this is fixed, that this never happens again. Because this can never happen again. It can't. There's so much that I want to say still, but and there's a lot there's a lot of things I want to say to the community as well. I mean, I've already addressed some of it, but most of this was just to show 343, like, we're not happy, we're angry, we're upset, we're hurting. We are hurting. We're really, really hurting. And I tried. I wanted to, like, be calm, but I just couldn't hide my frustration here, and I hope this doesn't come off as like me just screaming incoherently. I really hope that that's not the case, but nonetheless, yeah, do better, 343. I know you can. Do better. And frankly, if you want this to be the next 10 years of Halo, if you want Halo Infinite to be a live service game, step up your game. Because Destiny 2 has you beat in every single category right now. And I never thought I would say that.